Qualities Needed to Reconnect with Family. Episode 5, Apology. Part of the series, Conflict Resolution Insights from Brett Lovett's The Compassion Project and FamilyReconcile.com. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent. Hey everyone, Mac Pierre-Louis here, attorney at law, mediator, and arbitrator working throughout Texas and Florida.
And I am Natalia, and I am saying hello from Warsaw, where I practice as an advocate, meaning a lawyer and mediator and arbitrator.
And I'm Brett Lovett, and I am the founder of FamilyReconcile.com.
Thank you so much again, Brett. So we are back at episode 5, dealing with apology. As folks might know, we've been progressing through these different qualities that individuals need in order to reconnect with family, because one of the big things we're focusing on are relationships and the importance of relationships and maintaining peace in your life and connecting with family members, whether the relationship is involving a loved one, that's a spouse or a child or a sibling, whatever, because this connects very intimately to the work we do as mediators in helping people build bridges and move forward with their lives. But anyway, this week's topic is on apology. And Brett, go ahead and open us up with the definition of apology and how this fits into all these different qualities.
Yeah, so the definition one of the definitions for apology is to tell someone that you are sorry for having caused some difficulty or having caused a problem or unhappiness.
Okay. And let's get right into it. Everybody knows what apology is, but I'm going to guess it's something that people don't like to do. And can you explain to us why that is?
Yeah, that's interesting, huh? Because we hear apology, we use the word. I think in our minds, we think we know, we think we have a good grasp of what it is, but it is good to come back, especially because when we're talking about relationships and how important they are and the things that we need to do to maintain them, it's good to review things like apology. To answer your question, as simple as apology is probably in our mind, and though we may think we understand it, I think people have really complicated feelings about apologies. People remember maybe growing up and having parents that forced them to apologize for everything. Some people, this is even supported by research. Some people feel, they gladly take the initiative to apologize because they feel better after doing so. Some people report feeling shame or ashamed when they're offering apology. Some people, to the contrary, feel ashamed until they offer an apology. So I think the point is that everybody has some pretty complicated feelings around apology, what it means to them, why they offer it, what would compel somebody to offer it. I would put it in 3 categories. These are just my categories. You have intentional, right? An intentional, where you've intentionally done something that might require an apology. Then you have unintentional as a secondary category. And then a third category would actually be there's actually no moral offense. Might there be an apology needed even when we haven't done something quote unquote wrong? I'll give a quick example of the 3 of those. An intentional offense is like us calling somebody in the family, well, that's just stupid, or you're just stupid. That's an overt offense, that we would consider apologizing for. An unintentional offense would be, perhaps we have a commitment to somebody in the family and we missed that commitment because we got carried away or got, worked late and we didn't realize, and so we caused some sort of difficulty or some kind of problem for a family member, but it was unintentional. And then the third one is kind of a tricky one, kind of difficult. The best way I could probably illustrate is let's say you're off on a business trip and you come back, and while you were gone for a couple of days, your wife reupholstered a particular chair that you sit in every day to take your shoes off and put your shoes on. So you come back and you're sitting in the chair and you don't even realize that the chair has been reupholstered, and she comes in and says, what do you think of the chair? And then you look and you go, oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, you reupholstered it. Okay. Yeah. And I like the old one. I like the old, I like the way it looked before, but that's okay. And then she breaks out in tears. She's hurt because you don't like it. So you didn't necessarily do anything wrong, right? You didn't break some kind of moral code, but your words caused an emotional reaction or caused some sort of uncomfortableness or unhappiness. So that's just, those are the categories by which you can, is it intentional? Is it unintentional? Or is it just, a circumstance? Here's my point to this, or the issue that I see with apologies, and you can tell me what you think. It's difficult to apologize even when we intentionally do something wrong. That's not easy for us to apologize when we do something even intentionally wrong. So how difficult is it to apologize when we unintentionally do it? And even more so, how difficult would it be to apologize when we've actually committed no moral wrong? So these are the things that I don't think that's why it's good to consider apology, because we can go a lot deeper than just what we think apology is, which is saying, I'm sorry.
You mentioned it is just saying I'm sorry. And I think that apologizing has also two aspects. One is saying apology, so giving something out of you, but also the other one is receiving apology. And I do believe that we can get hurt by the apology that does not express the feelings, any feelings behind it. Can you explain that? Why is it so? And the other question in one go, why is it so important to apologize?
So the two words that come to my mind are sincerity and empathy. And probably more so empathy. It's people can sense, you can sense, I can sense if somebody offers us an apology, if it isn't sincere. And we know if we're offering an apology, whether it's sincere or not. What would cause an apology to be sincere or not to be sincere? Empathy. Empathy is it's not the only reason, but it's the main reason. And it's really the lack of empathy. So it's the lack of putting ourselves in somebody else's shoes, so to speak, or in their position to see how our behavior might have caused, unhappiness, or might have caused some sort of complication or difficulty. So it's the lack of empathy primarily that causes us to be insincere. And people can read when an apology is insincere. I don't think people necessarily know that that's what's going on. I think they struggle with how to give an apology. But that's why it's generally difficult, is because we're not being empathetic about the process of apologizing. Does that make sense, or do I need to clarify even more?
It does make sense. And tell me whether are there any studies that follow up on apology and what benefit long term it can bring?
Yeah, apology actually has a lot of research. A lot of research. Where do you start? They've been studied. It's been studied a lot. Just to bring up a quote, one individual said apologies are like Brussels sprouts, or they're the Brussels sprouts of relationships. So what does that mean? They're good for us, right? But there's something about them that makes us order something else on the menu, right? So apologizing is good, right? We know that apologizing is good. Mac talked about being in, we're taught from an early age, whether in the home or at school, apologizing is good. But it's just like Brussels sprouts. We know they're good for us, but we'll generally go somewhere else to something on the menu. Well, why do we do that? Well, it's because, actually another quote, this you probably recognize, this came from another movie. It said, love means never having to say you're sorry. That's from a pretty famous movie a decade or so ago. But back to your point, the research shows that if we don't apologize, we're really at risk of losing that relationship, as opposed to the famous quote from the movie there. So worth consideration.
So whenever I think of apology, I think of seeking forgiveness, because they're connected. And I know we'll talk about forgiveness another time, but this quote that comes to my mind is the idea that not forgiving is like preparing a cup of poison for someone else and then drinking it yourself, right? Because it requires a hard heart and bitterness that just will not allow you to move forward. But apology is, what's important to me about it is the reaction it can provoke. Because if you apologize to someone, there's vulnerability there. You may get rejected, and nobody wants to be rejected once they've come to say, I'm sorry. But in the mediation context or conflict resolution context or whatever kind of context where you're trying to make peace or resolve a problem that you have, offering just a simple apology may have the effect of causing a amazingly good reaction to come forth. So that's what I'm definitely focused on. If I'm a mediator and I'm trying to help two parties, reconcile or do a problem, resolve a problem, I might consider, hey, have you considered apologizing? I might consider advising them of that, because that word, I'm sorry, can have an amazing impact on helping move two people who are bitter enemies toward a point of reconciliation. So what do you think about that, as apologies can cause a positive reaction?
Absolutely, without question. I think it ties in, Mac, to what we've already talked about. If you're, let's say, in that context, it could be in a relationship context or in the family, but it could be in in a legal setting like that, or a formal setting, we'll call it. You may help someone to see the value, right? You're helping them to see the value in the potential benefits of apologizing. They may not know how to do that because they're trying to sort out feelings, perhaps in a highly emotional situation, right? So it goes back to what we said. You need to help them see that they need to be sincere, but they may not know how to be sincere. So you have to work them through the empathic part. If you can help them as a mediator or as a mentor in a family, right? It doesn't matter what the relationship setting is. If you can help them to be empathic or empathetic towards what the other person may be feeling and why, and how our behavior has contributed to that in one way or another, now you can help people understand, okay, now they can start building a bridge between the empathy of putting themselves in the other person's shoes and offering something of sincerity. So I think people want to apologize and they want to do it well. They're just generally not sure how to do it. And I think it starts with helping people to be empathetic, and then from there they can offer a sincere apology. I'm just going to run in a different direction here, because I really think there's so many things we can say. But to me, this was a profound point to me, a concept of understanding. And Natalia mentioned it. Why is it difficult to apologize? Why are we averse to it? If you're walking down the street, right, and you bump into somebody, how many of us immediately, without even giving a thought, turn around to the person we bumped into and said, I'm sorry, right? We don't even give that a second thought. Why? Well, because in the moment, that particular matter didn't impact us, doesn't impact our self-aware, our self-image, okay, our being. But as soon as we fail somebody, as soon as we don't live up to expectations, see, then that changes the game, because see, that's an attack on our character, right? We have this worldview of ourselves, our self-image. And when we don't live up to somebody's expectations, or we don't live up, or we fail something, see, now you're talking about my self-worth. Now you're talking about my image. That's why it's so easy to tell somebody you bump into, I'm sorry, without giving it a second thought, because it has nothing to do with your self-image. So understanding why it's easy to apologize in one setting and not another is part of the first steps that you're taking in order to be empathetic, in order to be sincere, in order to be able to understand why it's important to offer an apology and how to offer an apology.
Brett, and if we are to talk about practicalities of apologizing, are there any good benchmarks to follow when doing that?
There definitely are. I would say there's 3 benchmarks. Before I go into those benchmarks, this might be the most important point in this whole session here. Apologizing is not just the act of what most of us think in our head of just saying, I am sorry, because you can say I am sorry and you can absolutely mean it. You can be absolutely sincere, and it actually may not work. It may not produce benefits that you see immediately or in the moment. So when it comes to apologizing, when we're thinking about this concept of apologizing and how we apply it to relationships and how we apply it even in a formal mediator setting or whatever the case may be, apology has to be commensurate. Here's the point. It has to be commensurate to the difficulty, to the harm. So you can bump into somebody on the street and you can say, I'm sorry, and that suffices, right? How many of us get in the car, drive around, try to find that person we bumped into to say, I'm sorry again, or to find a different way to say, I'm sorry? That right? That would be nonsensical, correct? Okay. That's one end of the spectrum though. Okay. The other end of the spectrum could be something as difficult as sexual abuse in the family. Okay. I'll give you a real life example. A man had molested his 12-year-old daughter, okay, in a sexual way. And the matter became known. The family went to therapy and, for whatever reason, worked through it to the best that they could. I think 10 years or so went by. The man ended up having an affair, and the mother divorced him. She started going to a therapist or psychologist just to work through those issues. And she wanted her daughter to come with her, the one that had been, abused by the father when she was 12. She was now, 20 or 22. And it was really difficult to get her to do that. Finally, they got her to come to a session, and the psychologist asked her, how are you dealing with the fact that the father had just died? How are you dealing with this? And she just went into a complete tirade on her mother, blaming her mother for things. It was really emotionally packed. And the psychologist said she was just about to intervene. And the mother stood up and faced her chair towards her daughter and just said, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm so sorry that I wasn't there to protect. Not, well, I didn't know. What do you expect me to do? She just said, okay. So, and that would prove beneficial. To make, a long story short, that mother worked for quite a while to reach her daughter, to get her to a point where they could kind of talk again about it, because the daughter didn't really want to talk about it. And she had some pent up issues regarding her mom. But the psychologist said it was the most remarkable apology. Think about this, most remarkable apology she'd ever seen. But that apology took 3 years. So do you see what I'm saying? You're a fundamental understanding. If we really want to expand our understanding of these qualities, understand this. Apologies have to be commensurate. So the mom could have said, I'm sorry 3 times and meant it sincerely, and it wouldn't have made a difference. That doesn't mean it's a failure. It means that she was, apologies are words, deeds, and sentiments. All of that contains an apology. So it could be something as simple as I'm sorry because I bumped into you, or it could be something that takes several years and hard work because it's commensurate with the difficulty, it's commensurate with the harm or the damage. That is fundamental to understanding how to apologize and how to apologize sincerely to someone else.
Thank you. So, are there any practical ways to apologize? Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say there's three. There's acceptance, acceptance of responsibility. One, how do we do that? We don't just say, I'm sorry. We say, I'm sorry, and then we state what we're sorry for. We explain what we're sorry for. I am sorry that I did this thing. I am sorry that I was thoughtless when I said it. So it's not just saying I'm sorry. Acceptance is I'm sorry, and then we name what it is. Number two would be unqualifying. And this is a biggie. I'm sorry, but I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't done this. I'm sorry, but this was there and I didn't see it and I didn't know. So we qualify. So the second benchmark would be not qualifying. The third would be amends. And amends it could be anything from actually a physical giving to cover over something, or it could be a statement that we make. What can I do to show you that I value this relationship and that I won't do this thing again, or that I will work in a direction to not do this thing again? So it's acceptance, it's unqualified, and it's making amends. Those are three benchmarks for offering an apology with the knowledge of, is it commensurate? Is it commensurate with whatever the damage or unhappiness is?
Thank you so much for all of that. And I do believe that with those three things in mind, we can wrap up our discussion on this topic of apology, a part of this series talking about reconnecting with family. And we are going to have more on that. And we do hope that our viewers will stay with us and join us in the next episode on forgiveness.
Thank you for the time.
All right, bye-bye.